that the first noble truth in Buddhism is there's suffering in life, what we call dukkha. It's like we're all going through it. Let's be honest. We all experience aging, sickness, death, separated from our loved ones, being in company of people we don't like so much. And that's the first noble truth. And just like that validation I got from punk rock, that people were talking about the hard shit, it was like Buddhism's like, yeah, this is what we're here to do. We're here to approach this in a spiritual way where we find compassion for those inevitable sorrows.
Welcome to Sober Dad Crew, the podcast where we talk about all things sobriety, recovery, parenting, music, tattoos, work, and more. For more information, please visit soberdadcrew.com. All right, my guest this episode is Mikey Livid. He's the co-host of Punks on Hope podcast, co-director and guiding teacher at the Wild Heart Meditation Center in Nashville. He's got a master's degree in counseling psychology and is a member of the band The Rip Taylors. Mikey, welcome to Sober Dad Crew.
Yo, what is up, Steven? Thank you so much for having me. Peace and love, peace and love. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, man.
Yeah, this should be fun. I had to turn off my air conditioning because it's loud. So I'm in upstate New York. It's probably hotter in Nashville, but it's pretty warm up here. So,
well, I'm sitting in AC right now.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You got that sauna podcast going, huh?
Yeah, global warming, and we're on a well, and I'm just watching the grass turn brown and trying to get everybody to take 6-second showers, which the adolescents don't love that approach.
Right on.
All right. How did you come to your name, Mikey Livid? That is not your birth name.
I come from a long lineage of Livids. It's rooted in Italy. No, it is a given name, in the punk rock scene. I don't know if you've ever had a punk rock name, but in the punk rock scene, we'd give each other silly names. So I played in a band called the Livids. When somebody says, hey, it's Mikey from the Livids, and then it turns into Mikey Livid. And like just years of people still calling me Mikey Livid. I've had it as my name for well over 20 years, and I love it. It's like an authentic expression of myself these days as I hold space for a lot of people that explore their own identity. It's like, yeah, I want to live my own authentic expression of myself, and it's like, yo, I'm Mikey fucking Livid, and I that's who I am.
Yeah, they used to call me the mini punk when I was in like 8th grade with the mohawk many moons ago. Or also like my brother, he'll call me Stevie. So Not too many people call me Stevie anymore, but he still does. But authenticity is super important, and I feel like when I've looked kind of on my life and where I've struggled in mental health and, drinking too much, it's this struggle to feel like authentic. I've got the 9-to-5 job. I've got the mortgage. I've got these things that in so many levels feel very traditional and sort of disconnected from a lot of my political and kind of punk and activism roots. And I really I had to wrestle with that as a thing, and how to feel in the spaces that aren't natural to me, the work world. I mean, I work hard and I like my job, and we do good stuff. We build affordable housing. We're not evil. We're not shareholder traded. We're very family centric, but I still don't feel like that's my natural environment. It took me years to kind of just wear short sleeves shirts with all my tattoos. I was like, some of that was from being a single parent and this sort of fear of losing my job. But yeah, I don't even know what my question is, but your comment about authenticity really rang a bell with me.
Yeah. Isn't that what we're trying to do here? Yeah. Get to the core of things and live our lives in the most realist way.
So what was your sort of entry point into the punk rock scene?
So I grew up in middle class suburban United States, 80s, 90s, when the DARE program was going on, and the Just Say No to Drugs
I think
campaign
we're
was
near
going
the
on.
same age, my friend.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
frying pan.
It's a very relatable, unfortunately relatable situation that
Yep.
many of us have experienced. It's a lot of stigma around mental illness, addiction, just having fucking emotions to begin with. And yeah, so growing up in that stigma around just being authentic, having emotions, approaching things like divorce. I come from a divorce family. I come from an alcoholic family, and we never talked about that stuff because I never knew how to. And much like so many people, I came to the punk rock scene because they were being honest. They were telling me that they're suffering in life. They were on stage screaming about their emotions. They're expressing themselves to their fullness of authenticity. And, you know, like going to punk rock shows really gave me some avenue to express some of the things that were calling to be expressed that weren't allowed in polite society. So I got into punk rock through my sister, who was still, you know, she was going through the same thing, and she would show me bands like Social Distortion, 7 Seconds, the Ramones. The Ramones are my favorite. And then I started going to punk rock shows, and people were up there being real, screaming about their suffering in a society that was like, let's not talk about anything unpleasant. Yeah.
Yeah, the Clash was sort of definitely my gateway, and it gave me sort of political permission.
Mm-hmm.
Like I also grew up, you know, in white suburban conservative 1980s America. I mean, my family wasn't, but
Mm-hmm.
like the world surrounding me was, and I didn't feel like I fit that very well. And I
Yeah.
didn't have like this avenue to kind of express it that wasn't just being pissed. I mean, being pissed is useful, but that the punk scene also, to me, it was a community. You know, it's like all of us who are from the land of misfit toys,
Mm-hmm.
then you like find a place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you know, and to the outside viewer, it might look chaotic, but there's like rules of safety
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, taking care of each other that are really inherent in that scene that I think people outside it don't understand.
But it's the fucking best. It is the best. So last year, my band, the Rip Taylors, we were playing the Nashville Punk Rock Flea Market. And while we were there, like, this is like hundreds of people in this place, just big, you know, big warehouse. And while we were there, there was a tornado warning. And so everybody had to go lock down and just like stay in one spot together. And it was just something like, we're in this together. If I'm going to be anywhere with a group of people during a tornado warning, I'm glad it's with the punk rockers, because we really take care of each other. And yeah, that's like the kindest people. You know, I have this theory that the meaner the music, the nicer the people. The nicer the music, I don't know, you know, about the people. And so some of these songs that are just like so aggressive and so upfront, the people behind those microphones tend to be like super kind and super caring, in my experience. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, and I know you love the band Earth Crisis
Yeah.
from listening to your podcast. So I am near Syracuse, which is the birthplace of Earth Crisis, and have tattoos by DJ Rose, who is affiliated with that band. But it's also, you know, a vegan band and a straight edge band. And really Syracuse is like the sort of that birthplace of vegan straight edge hardcore music. And, you know, this sort of connects to that kindness and looking out at the world, is like that animal rights component of things.
Totally. Yeah, I got a specific love for Earth Crisis because veganism has been a huge part of my life for over 20 years. And, you know, that's what's so cool about getting in the punk scene. Not only was it helpful for my mental health, but it helped me learn how to care about shit. Like, I learned how to be vegan through the punk rock scene, but I grew up in Northwest Florida, which is a much different scene than where you're at, where we're like kind of like redneck punks and stuff like that, you know? And it's cool, like the whole vegan side of things that I learned from places like all the vegan restaurants like Sluggo's or End of the Line Cafe that are out here in Northwest Florida, that were having punk rock bands, and these like DIY restaurants that are now that veganism kind of grew, and now are very functional restaurants. So yeah, I learned how to be vegan through the punk rock scene, totally. And I guess that's passed down from, some of the stuff in Syracuse, huh?
Yeah. Funny thing is, punk folks tend to be very good at business because of the DIY thing. Because the scene in Syracuse, the best coffee shops are started by people out of that scene. Some of the best restaurants. It's like the punks are scrappy, and they figure out how to get things done. So if you're trying to like start a coffee shop, that's a good like mode to be in.
Totally. DIY, the greatest. Yeah. Like starting a band when I was like 14 years old, and like learning how to print flyers or, get people at the show. Who knew that's like learning how to start a business?
Right. In an age where you didn't just post something on Facebook because it wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
Like when you're out with the staple gun flyering. I miss those light posts with all the flyers. You just don't really see it that much anymore.
But that's the other thing in punk rock. I learned how to walk up to a stranger and say hi. Right. Like these days with, social media, it's unfortunate there's so much distance. But back in the day, walking up to a stranger and say, "Hey, we got a show going on, come out." That has been huge for me. That
human
I learned
contact.
Human contact, or just making friends with a complete stranger. I learned how to do that in punk rock. Yeah.
Well, and it's such a thing that's missing today, right? Is just talking to other people. Before we sort of hit record, we were talking about politics and stuff. And part of like our issues now, there's just this disconnect. And so much of that disconnect is just, it's manufactured.
Yeah.
It's like we are way more the same than different, even in this sort of political divide. And then I think, and I've told this story in this podcast before, being at a soccer practice and chatting with his dad, who's a prison guard. And then I didn't go into it with him on prison industrial complex because I was like, you gotta like wade in a little bit. But he hated his job. He hates his job, right?
Yeah.
But he has that job to support his family. So you have to sort of have empathy for that. And we were talking and we agreed that prisons are terrible for everyone in them. Prisoners, guards, it is an inherently broken and brutal system. And no one kind of comes out unscathed. Obviously, prisoners come out in worse shape, but is not a healthy environment for anyone involved in it.
Yeah, I do. I'm a spiritual advisor in a prison here in Nashville, and it's just awful on death row, women's death row here. And yeah, it's the hardest job I have. Do
you witness?
What do you mean?
Do you witness the executions?
So I haven't yet. This is something I've only done for 8 months, and luckily, the person I'm working with on death row is still with us. But yeah, if it gets to that point, yeah, I will.
I'm trying to remember. I recently listened to an interview with a woman who does that, and it was an incredible interview, and it, is super powerful, and so much respect for that willingness to do that kind of thing, and and put some dignity in a place, where there's not a lot of dignity.
There's a lot of power though. Like the person I work with that's on death row, some of the things she says are like, fuck, I don't got that in me. Like, I don't know how you do this. And like she said to me one day, we were talking about, I'm a Buddhist minister, and we were talking about karma and, stuff like that, just to try to figure out how to make some framework about what's going on. And a lot of it's trying to, train our minds to remain compassionate and kind and clear. And she said to me, she said that it's her life's mission to learn forgiveness, that to learn how to forgive herself, to learn how to forgive the state that is killing her. And it was just like, I don't know, that's so powerful that she's just like making it her whole life's mission to learn how to forgive. Yeah.
Yeah, we should all do that.
Yeah.
So what was your inroads to Buddhism?
So being within the punk rock scene, while I gave it all the praises, at the same time, it tried to kill me. So it was in a certain time in my life where I was going through a lot of turmoil with, like, my father had just died and I was deep in my addiction. Lots of friends passing away left and right. There was a time in the early 2000s where punk rock and Buddhism met in the strange world with the movement of the Dharma punks and other things like the Dharma punks book by Noah Levine, Hardcore Zen by Brad Warner. There's a few other books out there that take these two worlds that seem like they're opposites, and bring them together to discover they're kind of saying the same thing.
Right.
That the first noble truth in Buddhism is there's suffering in life, what we call dukkha. And it's like, we're all going through it. Let's be honest. We all experience aging, sickness, death, separated from our loved ones, being in company of people we don't like so much. And that's the first noble truth. And just like that validation I got from punk rock, that people were talking about the hard shit, it was like Buddhism's like, yeah, this is what we're here to do. We're here to approach this in a spiritual way where we find compassion for those inevitable sorrows. And finding compassion for pain was just something I really needed in my life. And it was through a series of dumb luck that I kept on reading all these books. And I came across a book called At Hell's Gate by a guy named Claude Anshin Thomas, who is a Vietnam veteran and a Buddhist monk. And I was reading his book one night, and I was at work the next day, and dude, like, I got a long story around it, but dude showed up at my work. I was reading your book last night. I recognized him from the little picture on the back of the book. And he's a monk. He's a modern monk. Gave me his phone number. And I just kept on meditating with him because he had something I wanted. And he saved my life, taught me how to meditate, taught me how to mind my manners. He's a Vietnam veteran, like military guy, and a Soto Zen monk, meaning it's a lot of tough love. It was very strict. He helped me realize I'm more capable than what I think. And I started with the Soto Zen. I don't know how much you know about the different branches of Buddhism or meditation and stuff like that.
I know some, but like I'm happy to dip into that a little bit too, because I think it's important to understand. And sort of weird side note, I work for an architecture firm, and we actually built the Dalai Lama's headquarters in Ithaca, New York. It's his like library and headquarters for the Western Hemisphere.
Wow.
Like his old Land Rover that he fled in is there. It's it's beautiful place. And we did this project, and then the monks at the end came in and they said, now we're going to paint it, which we sort of joke. Usually we don't encourage the clients to come in and paint.
Yeah.
But it's all this hand painted scroll. It's place is incredible. So, and I've read Noah's books, and I'm a terrible meditator, though it really helped me early on in sobriety and really helped me with my anxiety and depression. Maybe nobody's good at meditating. Yeah. It's like really hard to be in your own head, especially like I spent a lot of time in my own head, but intentionally being there was really hard. But I digress. So like some of the different schools of Buddhism would be, cool to learn about.
Yeah. Well, generally, there's the three major schools of Buddhism, and I like to call them MTV. Mahayana, Theravada, and Vajrayana. So Mahayana is the greater vehicle, which is like things like Zen and stuff like that. Theravada is the old school, just what the Buddha taught, and then Vajrayana is like the Dalai Lama, more influences from like Tibet and stuff like that. I predominantly these days, well, I started in Zen. I will go with the Theravada, because what they say is like Mahayana or Zen is for the poet. You know, there's like koans or the Heart Sutra, form is emptiness, emptiness is form, where you're like, I don't know, you take that and you kind of study it. Vajrayana is for the artist, like you're talking about a lot of visuals, stuff like that, where you use your own imagination to meditate on, lack of better term, deities. And then Theravada, they say, is for the psychologist. A lot of mapping, mind mapping and stuff like that. So that's predominantly what I work in now, is the Theravada, like the old school forms of Buddhism that, you know, our modern mindfulness comes from, stuff like that, where it's just like so much psychology, which I love. And it's been super beneficial for me. Yeah.
Yeah. To back up a little bit, you know, your sobriety journey, sort of before discovering Buddhism, like what was your kind of path through? Did you have like attempts to get sober, and you know, how did that all play out for you?
Yeah, they didn't work. So it was tough because where I grew up in Florida, like I remember being attacked for the way I looked, you know, punk rocker, like, you know, more effeminate at that time too, stuff like that, exploring gender identity and stuff like that. Like I was attacked. There was
That
one time
stuff
I got
wasn't big
attacked.
in the 80s.
Right. So what, wasn't big in the 80s?
Well, we, you know, coming up in the 80s, just the notion of any gender nonconformity, or, you know, being gay, certainly not trans, you know, my kids now, the openness around that. I mean, in my lifetime, I've noticed a huge change for the better. I mean, it's certainly under attack now, but like, there's no one out in my school when I was in high school. Nobody.
Yeah, and well, luckily, I come from a punk scene that was at the forefront, and there's plenty of times where, you know, people couldn't figure me out. Are you a boy? Or are you a girl? And in redneck Northwest Florida, the pickup trucks would come after me and beat the shit out of me. And so when it came to going to like AA, I'd pull up to the parking lot and there'd be a line of pickup trucks.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, fuck that. I'm not going in there. And, you know, numerous times girlfriends, I'm going to leave you if you don't quit drinking. And it's like, okay, fine, I'll quit. And then it's like, that didn't work. And all the attempts to try to do it myself, it just didn't work. And then that's when finding the Dharma, Buddhism, hit home for me, because I thought I was weird looking the way I looked, or punk rock, whatever it is, makeup, whatever I'm wearing. I thought that was weird. And then I met Buddhist monks and nuns with shaved heads and robes. And I thought I got funny looks when I go out on the town. They got funny looks. They got people saying some wild shit to them. And yeah, so that's where I found my community, was Buddhism. I first started meditating. I was very active in addiction. And yeah, luckily that's what I was doing before, you know, Buddhist recovery was even like a thing. Nowadays, it's refuge recovery or recovery dharma or 8-step recovery. There's a lot of Buddhist modalities that I've seen come alive since I've been sober. And it's very validating for me, because when I first started, I was like, I think I'm doing this wrong because I don't do 12 steps. And now it's like, oh, there's plenty of other people doing this now.
Yeah. And I didn't do 12 step. Like I just stopped, you know, and I think I stopped early enough. And, you know, I felt like I had this moment where my grandmother came down from, you know, I'm not heaven, but, you know, I believe the energy doesn't go away. So, you know, her energy was still out there and was like, you got to cut this shit out. She would not have said shit. But, and I just was like, I hear you. And I just turned the other way, and I think I was really lucky. And I did a bunch of therapy and I got on antidepressants and I, really tried to do work. Like I think you don't have to do 12-step. You don't have to do what I did. Like, but there's some place where you need to do work that digs into what's behind why you were doing what you were doing or why you're struggling with your mental health, even if it doesn't have anything to do with substance mental health struggle. So for me, it was a lot of therapy to like call me, somewhat on my own shit. But it made a huge difference. And certainly meditation was part of that. It was sort of outside of any discipline. But I've talked to enough people, in real life and on this podcast that 12-step doesn't always fit. And it's often, and maybe it's a little less now, but a long time, that was viewed as the way.
Yeah.
And if you struggle with the notion of a higher power, either people didn't do it or they found some other way to kind of square that in their mind, or, BIPOC folk I've had on who just talk about those rooms I was the only one in the room and it didn't work for me. Like I didn't want to always have to explain myself, or, you pull up and you see all the trucks and you're like, nope, I'm not going in there to sort of relive what happened. I think, this Buddhism and recovery thing really did create a new outlet for people that has a lot of value.
So yeah, you don't do 12 steps at all, huh?
I don't. My wife does. I mean, and that's been really pivotal for her, but it wasn't for me. I kind of like re-embraced the notion of being straight edge as a way to frame it up. Some of that was a way to publicly say I don't drink without saying I had a problem with drinking.
Cool.
Now I'm like, I'll tell anybody I had a problem with drinking, like I don't care. I think being public about it's important, but that was like a way for me to be like, no, I'm straight edge. So it's like, and I do choose sobriety, right? So it wasn't dishonest, but it didn't tell the whole story.
Yeah. It's, what is it? There's that documentary that came out maybe 15 years ago, The Anonymous People, that was about breaking the anonymity to break the stigma around addiction. And that's what, we're talking about. We come from a lot of stigma. Just say no. Like it's that fucking easy. And then I think what you're doing now is breaking that anonymity and that hiddenness of hiding in church basements. And we're talking about it in public. That's fucking punk rock to talk about this stuff, to normalize that every single person has some connection to addiction one way or another.
In the other part for me, like I don't necessarily look like what a lot of people think people in recovery look like, right? No DUI, 4 kids, happily married, hold down a job. I'm not like what a lot of people think. And that's also why it's important to me, because there's this stereotype of the person on the corner, that's strung out, that I think a lot of people see, and they sort of make these assumptions about what people who are struggling with substance abuse look like. And I think it's important to show that it's way more people than that. That's a very small number of people, but it lets a certain segment of the population dehumanize folks who struggle with mental health, because in the end, it's a mental health struggle.
Yeah. Like back to authenticity, where if you go to enough meetings, you hear people one-upping each other with war stories. Well, I was this. Well, I was that. And it's like, well, how much of that is actually true? How much exaggeration is there? And you're just deflating that whole exaggeration and be like, bro, I'm a dad. And it's like, that's an important story to tell too. That authentic aspect of just owning your your dadship. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm more than my mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's a period where I really sort of identified as like this person with depression and anxiety, and as I worked through it, I realized, well, it's like a health thing I have, but it's not who I am.
Yeah.
And it's something I can manage through the choices I make. And, at the time it was therapy, and it's not drinking. And, at the time it had been antidepressants, and trying to remove stigma from all that stuff, because I just think stigma just doesn't do any good. It doesn't help anybody get better.
Yeah. But it takes a hell of a lot of courage, to be honest, to be real, right? And I think that's where that stigma lies, where it's like being authentically yourself and speaking your truth with the concerns of judgment or ridicule, just shame. It's hard. It is very hard. And just even being compassionate there, where it's like, yeah, there is stigma, and I understand that's a mask society is wearing, and it's hard. It's to be that honest with ourselves, much less honest on a podcast.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, in my job, I'm on LinkedIn a lot. Not a very punk rock platform, but I'm on there a lot. And I remember before, in the process of getting hired for the job I have now, I posted on LinkedIn the first time my sobriety date.
Cool.
And I thought, what the hell did I just do? I'm in the middle of this hiring process. And then I thought, well, if they don't hire me for that, good. I shouldn't be there. But I've had so many people in that professional world, like, privately reach out to me. Consultants I work with. I was at the barbershop, and someone I had worked with, oh my God, 20 years ago, who we bump into each other from time to time. And he's like, hey, I like your podcast. I'm in that club. He said something like that. And I was like, okay, like, cool. You don't have to be public, but also, like, there's no shame in it, but I'm not telling, people have to do what feels right and authentic to them.
Sure.
But I want to create this space where people can be like, look, I struggled. Like, I'm a better husband, I'm a better employee, I'm a better dad because I've struggled, and I learned how to struggle, and I learned how to work my way through it. I mean, I tell my kids that, right? I'm like, no one promised you, and this is sort of back to suffering. No one promised you, I always tell them, a straight road with no bumps, no hills, no curve. No one promised you that, because it's not a thing. There's loss, like, when I had to tell my oldest, a friend of his, when he was 16, died by suicide. That was probably still the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And in no way to, like, frame that up into anything other than just brutally and terrible. There was, like, no way to make that better in any way, that just, but that's that suffering, right? And learning how to, like, sort of walk through that.
Yeah, I've had so many friends die from suicide, and it's, you could tell the normies that don't understand, that judge, oh, that was a weak way out. And it's like, you could just say you don't understand, because I've been there. I get it. It's yeah. But
if you've never been in a dark place, it is hard to understand. It's really hard to understand, but not necessarily in the way that is put out there, in a way of judgment, like of weakness. I mean, to think about being in such a hard place that you see no other alternative, because I do believe there's a light at the end of every tunnel. It might be really dim, but it's there. But if you can keep kind of like leaning into it, I mean, when hard things have happened, I just know sometimes I just got to, like, lean into it and just keep kind of pushing forward. And eventually things do get better, but it can be really hard for a while.
Yeah. And that's where so much of my practice meditation practices has helped me with those ideations, suicidal ideations, because I still get them from time to time, but I can view them in a different way. Knowing a thought is just a thought is super helpful. When my mind is trying to kill me, I go, oh yeah, that's a thought. And yeah, I use this analogy in my upcoming book, Blood, Guts, and Buddhism, that the word mindfulness is rooted in this word sati, S-A-T-I. It's Pali Sanskrit word. And at its core, that word sati means to remember. Like when you're practicing mindfulness of breathing, the mind wanders. You remember to come back to the breath. Or mindfulness of body, same thing. The mind wanders. You remember to come back to the body. Or mindfulness of mind, you remember. That's a thought. So it's about this like remembering thing. And I grew up watching like horror movies, I'm like the youngest in my family. So I was like exposed to these like horror movies a little bit too young. And so my dad and my sister would be watching like The Shining. And
legitimately scary movie,
especially for like a little kid. And I'd freak out. And what would my mom say? Oh, remember, it's just a movie. So it's like when my mind is playing those horror movies, I can say, remember, it's just a thought. Remember, it's just a thought. And Munindra, Anagarika Munindra, Burmese teacher, he says a thought of your mother is not your mother. It's a thought. So as my mind's playing out this story, vision, activation, I could say, oh yeah, remember, it's just a thought. Remember, it's just a thought. Just like the horror movies. Remember, it's just the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I have, a mantra, if you will, around gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
Like
mm-hmm.
I have this, my grandmother always talked about being greatly blessed. And I have that, tattooed on my arm as a reminder, right? Like when things are hard, remember you are greatly blessed. Like remember, you have a wife that loves you and kids that love you and community that supports you. Like, remember to be grateful, even when it's hard. And that to me is sort of that notion of like how to keep going when it's tough. Like, my grandmother or my grandfather was in the Navy in World War II. She had my mom and her two sisters in the Pacific Northwest while he was in the Navy. And she still always talked about being greatly blessed. And it's funny, like sobriety to me in the best of times and the worst of times is when I'm most grateful for my sobriety. Like 2 weeks ago today, my mom passed and I'm like so grateful to be clear-minded. Like they were in Maine and I just walked into my boss's office. I was like, I gotta go. And he's like, go, so I'm grateful for that workplace, right? That's like, I just disappeared for 2 weeks. And it wasn't a total shit show when I got back, but being in the loss of her, which she had dementia. So there was also, it was time, but focusing on what I'm grateful about having her in my life and not just like, oh, woe is me, I've lost my mom. I mean, certainly that's part of grief, but trying to frame that up in the gratitude because she was 85, right? That she had a full life and most of her life was not, being tormented by Alzheimer's disease, right? Most of her life was really incredible, and being grateful for that has just been helpful to me.
Yeah, and I love how you're speaking to both grief and gratitude. Like we can have both of these things in the very same moment, because I don't know if you heard the term toxic positivity, where it's like, oh yeah, just look on the bright side. And it's like, well, that ain't going to fucking happen when someone you love so dearly is gone. You can't look at the bright side there. Well, when we welcome in the grief, we actually can welcome in the gratitude versus try to hide the grief with gratitude. That ain't going to work. And, Brene Brown talks about you can't selectively numb. And so much of my life has been trying to numb out that grief. And when I numb out that grief, I numb out the gratitude too. And that's how I became depressed completely, just feeling dead inside because I was learning how to mask unpleasant emotions. So therefore the pleasant ones weren't there either. And it's so hard.
Yeah, well, then you just become a flat line.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a way. It's not a way to live. Like, you got to have both parts of it, right? You know, with the joy, you have to have the pain. Like, just being neutral is not a really exciting way to walk through the world.
Yeah, and I don't think it ends up being neutral sad enough, you know?
True.
I think it just ends up just a slow decline until, like, you're just trapped in some sort of miserable ball of depression, anxiety cocktail, right? Yeah, if only it was neutral. Oh, you know?
Yeah, because then once you've slid down, it is, you know, the road back up is not necessarily easy. But it is there. Like, I firmly believe that there's a road back for people.
How do you do that? How do we make the road back up?
I mean, I think part of it's like, you know, connection, reaching out to connect to people who are isolated. I think, like, my 22-year-old, he's brilliant at this. He'll talk to anybody on the street. You know,
Cool.
the folks that most people cross the street for, he'll just be like, "What's up, brother?"
Yeah.
You know, and I think, you know, showing like kindness in a world that's unkind is one way, because I think we were in a pretty unkind world right now. And so when you show kindness and vulnerability, I think that shows people a way.
That's it. Yeah, like, we're losing track of our own humanity. As humans, we are social beings. We're pack animals. And so when it comes to emotions, we're called to feel with one another. You know, we have that emotion contagion. If I start crying right now, you would start crying. Or if I started yelling right now, you would feel that sense of excitement. So when we feel with one another, it gives us a sense of regulation. I always talk about, like, Rat Park. You ever hear about Rat Park? Because I do this at treatment centers too, where there's a famous TED Talk. I can't remember who did it, but it's titled "Everything You Know About Addiction Is Wrong." And he talks about how there was a study where they took a rat and they put this rat in a cage with 2 bottles of water, and one bottle of water was just plain old water, one was cocaine water. And then the rat by itself with just these 2 options, what do you think happened?
Cocaine.
Yeah, the rat drank so much cocaine water that the rat died. And they're like, well, what a dumb study. Well, poor rat. Do you discover rats like cocaine too? Great. So somebody else expanded this study, and what they did was they got a big old cage, huge cage, and they made it suitable for rats, and then some. They built Rat Park with the inner tubes and the hamster wheels and all that. And instead of just one rat by itself, they just filled it full of rats. And the rats had a blast. But they still had 2 bottles of water, one with regular water, one with cocaine water. And what do you think happened then?
Probably just the regular water.
Yeah, I thought they would just be doing cocaine the whole time, but apparently none of the rats died. Yeah, some of them drank cocaine water. Could have been on accident, who knows? But they preferred the regular water. Why is that? Rats are mammals. Mammals are social beings. So it was the isolation that killed that first rat, not the actual cocaine. While we can blame substances for our addictions, actually the substances aren't the reason for our addictions. It's our isolation. That's the reason for our addiction, because we have trauma. Trauma exists, and trauma is, a big root to addiction, but how we regulate our trauma is the cause or freedom from our addiction. And so when I'm feeling fucked up, if I can go to a friend and they can feel that emotion with me, and say, yeah, it's okay to feel this way. That's actually what will negate the addiction, versus when I try to bottle it all up in here. I know the best thing I know I could do to regulate my traumas and emotions and all that is a fucking drink. But the sad thing about drinking is it doesn't last. So I need another drink and another drink and another drink. And there's a saying, you never get enough of something that almost works. It almost did it. It almost made me feel safe. It almost made me feel secure. It almost got rid of my anxiety, depression, grief, sorrows. It almost. So I'll keep trying. And then we get with a person that we trust, a therapist or a meeting, a teacher, whatever it is. And we get with that person and they're like, yeah, you could talk about this. We got this. I got you right here. And then it's like, oh shit, that's actually what works. So I could set aside the things that almost work.
Yeah, that makes me think of Josh Corder's book, Unsubscribe.
Yeah, Josh Corder.
Right.
I've sat with retreats with him.
Yeah, that's like a great book, and it is. And it, and it's not just about substance, it's about materialism and consumerism. Like, it's a really great book. And I think it has a lot of bearing on sort of overuse of social media. I mean, I'm not going to hate on social media. Like, I use it. I promote this podcast with it. It's, it's connected me to a robust, broader community of sobriety and politics and all that stuff. But it can be really faulty. And and especially looking at the young people in my life, it can definitely skew things around body image. It fuels the avenues of hate in all its ways, from racism to anti-trans to all that stuff, because it's fueling untruths, and it also creates an easy avenue for people to just, throw Molotov cocktails, if you will.
Yeah. And if we're talking about addiction, it's not the cause of addiction. Right. Where that's what helps me if we're talking about this scenario where it's how we regulate our emotions and regulate our traumas is the distinct quality of addiction. It's not drinking, because when I first got sober, I was really against drinking. That's what killed my father. That's what killed all my friends. But ultimately, no, it's not. For me too. Like, it helped me. It kept me alive for a long time. Sure, it tried to kill me too. But also, I just didn't have any resources to regulate my emotions. And so drinking was the next best bet. And so people in my life that have died from these things, they just didn't have enough resources. And so whether it's social media or pornography or drugs or drinking, gambling, those aren't the causes for our addiction. It's our hearts and our inability to be authentic with these hearts. So that helps me be not so judgmental, but discerning. We need to discern. Some of that social media stuff is bullshit. I'll give you that.
Yep.
And like you said, some of it's actually kind of cool, because we wouldn't have known each other if it weren't for social media. Yeah. So.
Right. And I've met, a lot of super cool people doing this who have just been super generous. Right. And like, yeah, I'll do your thing. And like, especially early on, like, the singer for Everclear, I'm like, all right, you don't know me from like anything, but you agreed to do this, and that sort of, there's generosity in, I think, a lot of the recovery community, and be it, 12-step or refuge or whatever. What's incredible about those things, they are free. Say what you will about the church basement. Yeah. You don't have to pay a penny to go into those places in a time when healthcare is fucked and people may not be able to afford a therapist. They're just the ultimate community-based things.
People. It's groups of people. And it's so good. Well, okay, so I may be taking charge, because I'm used to like hosting podcasts.
Yep,
if that's
go
okay.
for it.
Can I take charge? Because we're talking about like sober dad crew. So it's like, I'm not a dad. I'm a dog dad. So is it okay if I switch to like Punks on Hope mode for a second?
100%.
Yeah. So on Punks on Hope, you may have caught that we like playing a lot of games. So I'm wondering if I could host a dad game with you right
Totally.
now.
Let's do it.
Okay. So what I want to do is a dad tournament. A dad tournament where you pick between two dads. And we'll keep moving until we find the best cartoon dad.
All right. We played a family game like this.
Okay.
About dads. It was on vacation. But it was like, do you choose pizza? Would you live without pizza or blankets? It was this sort of thing. And in the end, it was kind of dumb because it was really it was fun. Like, it was fun.
Well, this will definitely not be dumb. This is going to be the most insightful thing you have ever experienced.
All right.
And
I'm in.
It's going to be dumb. Okay. You ready?
Yes.
All right. So the dad tournament, the cartoon dad tournament. Let's do this. Okay. Round 1, Homer Simpson versus Bob Belcher. Simpsons versus Bob's Burgers. Homer Simpsons versus Bob Belcher. Well, who you got?
Oh, man, that's a hard start.
Yeah.
I have a lot of love for both of those shows. I'm going to go Bob Belcher.
Bob Belcher. Okay. Okay. Do you have a reason? Because that's pretty powerful.
Part of Bob's Burgers for me was when it was one of those shows when my daughter is about to go into nursing school, was in the throes of her eating disorder. It was one of the shows that we would watch. So there's sort of like deeper meaning to that show, and we've passed it along. So my younger two are technically my stepkids, though I just love them like my kids. So we've sort of passed along the love of Bob's Burgers.
Oh, so it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to beat Bob.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Bob Belcher versus, I just want to go classic, Fred Flintstone.
I think I'm still with Bob on that.
Okay. Excuse me, Bob Belcher versus Peter Griffin.
Oh, I never watched that show much.
Yeah, it's not that good. It's not that good.
So I guess Bob.
Okay. Bob's going to beat everybody I have on this list. Bob Belcher versus George Jetson.
I mean, I'm also like, the Jetsons sort of goes back for me to when I was a kid. So I do it, but I still think there's just a lot of love with the Belchers. There's a lot of like heartfelt love on that show. And it's funny. Like, the burgers of the day are funny.
Yes. Oh, totally. Okay. I'm just going to keep trying here. See if anybody beats Bob. Yeah. Bob Belcher versus Hank Hill.
That's closer.
Okay.
Because I do think King of the Hill is amazing. And then it's coming back, right? They're bringing it back. And they aged them. Do you know this?
Yeah. I saw the trailer for that. That's right. Awesome.
So, The Simpsons sort of went on forever and they never aged. But I like that King of the Hill went away and now it's coming back, and like Bobby's a chef, which sort of seems great. But I still think I'm going to go with Bob.
Okay.
So that was much closer.
Okay. So this is one for me that I literally watched a Goofy movie last night. You know how Goofy has his son Max. So how about Goofy versus Bob Belcher?
It's Bob.
Yeah.
I think I messed up your game.
I know. Well, I guess I should have just. I think this is great. I think you just have a great heartfelt story for Bob Belcher, and Bob Belcher wins. Huh?
Yeah. I mean, I just love that show. And I just think they're just wacky and they struggle like financially, but it's just like a lot of love in that show, with that family. My
wife has a Tina tattoo, and it's like a butt heart, because like Tina is all about butts, and I've bought her the music on Bob's Burgers is so fucking funny. The songs on that are so good. Yeah.
And I always run the Gaga Ball episode
Well, okay,
where
remind
it's
me,
like that
please.
playground game with the ball, and Tina's very successful at it. And she goes home and she keeps saying to her dad, "I banged that boy. I banged that boy." And Bob keeps saying, "Don't say that. Don't say that. Don't say that." She's, "No, I banged that boy." So I remember laughing very hard at that episode.
So outside looking in, I'm just going to assume that's your life, right? Like as a dad, that's what your life is, huh?
I mean, I was joking with a coworker that being a parent is sometimes like being a short order cook. Like my parents long ago gave me a panini press, and that is probably the gift I've used more than any other gift that I have received for all manner of cooking for kids when they're like starving and it's late and you can like whip up a quesadilla in 2 minutes.
The best. Well, air fryers though. Are you in the air fryer world?
I am. I'm not. I don't use it a lot, but we do have an air fryer or the Instapot. There's a lot of good devices, you know, in the kitchen.
Okay. You want to do round two? I want to do round two because I got to redeem myself. This is like TV show dads, like live action.
Okay.
So we're getting away from the cartoons. So, okay. I'm gonna do this right. Oh, this is good. Gomez Adams, you know, the Adams family versus Archie Bunker, All in the Family.
I think Archie Bunker.
Archie Bunker. You got any reasons? Because that is a classic dad.
I think it's more for the show. There was some very, I think, progressive stuff around that show, and the way it really showcased working class America, I thought was like a lot of strength. And he was definitely like, he was just flawed, you know, like he was very flawed, but also like loved his family. And like, aren't we all that in a way?
All right, Archie Bunker, who is like, you're talking about it being progressive, but he was like the butt of all of those progressive jokes. Yeah.
Right. But there was an episode on that was like really hit racism, like pretty straight on at a time when no one was talking about that. And his response was interesting on that show because he was like, what the hell? You know, like this, as sort of rednecky as he was.
And classic theme song.
Yeah.
It was such a good theme song. Okay. So Archie Bunker versus Tim Taylor, which is what Tool Time. What is that one?
Oh, I never watched that show.
Okay. So moving on, Archie Bunker wins. Archie Bunker versus Mike Brady.
Oh,
Brady Bunch.
I mean, I watched a lot of Brady Bunch back in the day.
That was
good one. I'm gonna go Mike Brady Bunch because it was a blended family, so that resonates with me.
What's up? Okay. All right. So we're moving on. Mike Brady versus Carl Winslow. What's that? With Urkel and all that.
Oh.
Yeah, what was that called?
About
Family Matters.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Mike Brady.
Mike Brady versus Philip Banks, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
I think still Mike Brady.
Mike Brady's killing it. Okay, this is mine. This is Mike Brady versus Al Bundy, Married with Children.
I think Al Bundy.
Al Bundy's like he's like
but it's in the Archie Bunker kind of category.
Yes, totally. Okay, Al Bundy's so good. Al Bundy versus Danny Tanner.
Oh, Full House.
Yeah, Full House. Yeah, my bad.
I think Al Bundy.
Yeah, I think Al Bundy wins. Yeah, Al Bundy wins.
There we go.
Thanks for humoring me.
No, that was great.
Non-punk, because Punk's Young Hope. Half the show is us playing those dumb games. So.
Yeah, no, it's fun, and it's fun to kind of lighten things up a little bit. I mean, To wrap up, can you do a guided meditation for us? Is that that's a good way to circle it up?
That sounds
that'd
great.
Be really cool.
Yeah, the full spectrum. So let me front load it a little bit.
Yeah, we got to have a little bit of space between the games, but
yeah. Well, what I want to focus on is a little bit of loving kindness meditation. You ever done loving kindness meditation?
I haven't.
Okay, so I teach meditation all over, like I said, in prisons, treatment centers, corporate settings, all over the place. And mindfulness seems to be the meditation that people are teaching. Mindfulness is great, but I think these days we need to get a little different type of meditation, which is another meditation rooted in the Buddhist teachings, which is loving kindness meditation. So loving kindness is rooted in this Pali word, this dead language, metta, M-E-T-T-A. If you ever see that word metta with two T's, not one, like Facebook, but two, that means loving kindness. There's that basketball player. Who's that basketball player? He changed his name to Meta World Peace. I don't watch basketball, but
I'd have to ask my oldest. He watches basketball.
He was the guy that was punching people. I don't know. Listeners know. Leave it in the comments.
Yeah.
So it's rooted in this old school Buddhist practice, loving kindness. So the way we practice loving kindness is by saying phrases silently to ourselves. The phrases I use are, may I be at ease, may I be at peace, may I be kind and gentle with myself, may I be filled with loving kindness. And we just say those silently towards ourselves over and over and over again. Much in the same way in mindfulness, you'll come back to the breath. The invitation here is to come back to these phrases over and over and over again. Why? Well, the Buddha 2,600 years ago said, what one frequently thinks and ponders upon will become the inclination of the mind. So many words that's just saying thoughts are habits. And modern neuroscience has that saying, neurons that fire together wire together, that we have neuroplasticity. So we can literally use our mind to reshape our brain to think a certain way. It's like driving down a dirt road. So if you drive down that dirt road enough, you're going to have those tire marks. You're going to have that pathway carved out. And to be real, we probably have some old dirt roads in our neural system, in our brain, that aren't loving and kind. So the rad thing about loving kindness is it's indiscriminate. So let's say hatred arises in your mind. If you try to hate that hatred out, push out hateful thoughts, all you'll be doing is further ingraining more hatred. But if hate arises in your mind and you meet that hate with love, gentleness, acceptance, may I be at ease with the hate in my mind? May I be at peace with the anxiety in my body? May I be kind and gentle with some of these ideations in my mind? What we discover is this indiscriminate kindness that we can find a sense of well-being even when our inner and outer conditions aren't favorable. And so it's just by saying these phrases, may I be at ease, may I be at peace, may I be kind and gentle with myself, may I be filled with loving kindness over and over and over again, that just trains that awareness, that trains that neural pathway, that trains our mind in that way, habits. So you want to dive in for maybe just a 5-minute loving kindness meditation?
Yeah.
So let's do it. So a little emphasis on posture, just finding a way to sit that just opens the line of communication, that there's so many valuable expressions in the front of the body. So if you're physically able to, sitting upright, so you can just open up the heart a little bit and let it show itself in this meditation. And if it's comfortable for you, allowing the eyes to close, and if not, just soften your gaze in front of you. And maybe just giving yourself a few deep in and out breaths from your heart. And soften the body. And it may feel right to put your hands on your heart to bring in a sense of touch. And just tapping into your deepest intention to be kind to yourself, to be gentle with yourself, to be radically accepting of yourself as you are. And just breathing in and out, silently saying to yourself, may I be at ease. May I be at ease. May I be at ease. As the mind wanders, just come back to the phrase, may I be at ease. And then breathing in and out from this heart, trying on the phrase, may I be at peace. May I be at peace. May I be at peace. And as any conflicts arise in the mind, the body, the heart, see if you can make peace with these conflicts with the phrase, may I be at peace. May I be at peace. May I be at peace. And then expanding the heart further with the phrase, may I be kind and gentle with myself. May I be kind and gentle with myself. May I be kind and gentle with myself. You know, there's parts we like, parts we don't like about ourselves. Just being kind and gentle with the whole operation. May I be kind and gentle with myself as I am. And breathing in and out, welcoming in the next phrase, may I be filled with loving kindness. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be filled with loving kindness. Filling up the mind, the body, the heart, things we like, things we don't like, all of it. May I be filled with loving kindness. And so these are the phrases we meditate on. May I be at ease. May I be at peace. May I be kind and gentle with myself. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be at ease. May I be at peace. May I be kind and gentle with myself. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be at ease. May I be at peace. May I be kind and gentle with myself. May I be filled with loving kindness over and over again. And so this is the very simple yet profound practice in any moment, not just when we're sitting still. Just take these phrases with us May I be at ease. May I be at peace. May I be kind and gentle with myself. May I be filled with loving kindness. Creating this habit within our minds to create a peaceful environment within. All right. So let's end the meditation the way we started, with a few deep in and out breaths. And as we do so, adjusting and moving the body in whatever way feels right for you, allowing the eyes to open, come back to the space we're in. And there you are. All right.
Wow. Thank you. That was awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for having me. It was lovely. I'm rooting for you from afar. Thanks for doing everything you're doing. It's highly appreciated, and it's an offering to the world.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks for listening. Sober Dad Crew is a DIY project by Stephen Kimball, who writes, edits, and produces the show. To support the show, please review it where you listen to podcasts, or visit SoberDadCrew.com to buy some merchandise or make a donation.